Okay, so I'm giving a talk here on the importance of networking. And maybe just a little bit about me for people who don't know me. So I'm John Ennis, CEO of Neoswap. I'm originally a mathematician. I have a PhD in math. I did my postdoc in computational neuroscience. Then I went into market research consulting. About 5 years ago, I founded Agora, which is an enterprise AI services business. And Neoswap was really a project I've been working on for a long time on my own. It incubated inside my first company for about a year, and then it was spun out. And actually, it was thanks to the Stacks Accelerator, which I guess is one of the precursors to the BTC Startup Lab. We were in the second cohort of the Stacks Accelerator, and this process really taught me how to be a startup founder. So I think is a really great opportunity, and it's nice to be on the other side of this and sharing some of the lessons I've learned along the way. So I hope this is helpful, and I'm happy to answer any questions after it's over, or you can follow up with me. I'm a big believer, that part of this whole, part of the whole reason to be alive is to help other people. And, you go through life and you learn a lot of stuff, and it's a shame if when you die, all that stuff dies with you. So you really need to pass it on. So as you learn these lessons, make sure you pass them on. Okay. So that last talk, I think, was excellent, and I'd like to get a copy of it. I think that the deck, extremely important. I would say that networking is just as important, that you really have to prioritize networking. That, in fact, to a large extent, you think about Neoswap and our ability to survive. So we've raised now 2.5 million pre-seed, and it looks like we're going to get another 500 or so in the relatively near future. So we'll be at 3 million pre-seed, and we're getting ready for our seed round. And what has really allowed us to survive in this very difficult environment, and I think it's getting a little bit better now, but it was very, very hard there for a while, was networking. If it wasn't for our network, we would have totally failed. And even in my personal life, I've had this experience where, we had, we had a situation where we had a nanny who literally went insane, and she thought that she threatened to abduct our children and all this kind of stuff. She tried to get my wife fired. I mean, it was a terrible situation. And the only reason we made it through is we had a strong network and our friends supported us. It's very important to connect with all the people around you, because when you're in any kind of difficult situation, your network gives you so much more strength. So very important to cultivate your network. Okay. And if you're especially if you're technical and you're kind of a builder minded, that's good, but you still need to be connected to other people, because there's going to be lessons that you have to learn along the way. Right now, I'm learning a lot about the kind of market side of product market fit. And I fortunately have a strong network. And so just today, we asked another person to join as an advisor who's going to help us with business strategy. That the intro's incredibly important, the knowledge, all of that, the hiring comes in through your network. Networking is incredibly important. And I would say for sure, Neoswap wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for networking. Okay. Now, I think that when it comes to goals, something that I did early on, especially if you are more analytic or you're more introverted, it's good to have some goals. I used to have a rule, send 10 connection requests a day on LinkedIn, that kind of thing. Have some goal of a certain number of people you're going to reach out to on Twitter, that you're going to respond. Another way to start to build relationships on Twitter is to start to respond to people that you'd like to meet. Okay. And have a little rule, set notifications on for them, make sure that you respond, but have some idea of who it is that you're trying to meet and what you're hoping to get out of those relationships. And for me, you think about where I was coming from. I'd already built a bootstrap company. My first company, Agora, has 12 employees. It does something like 2 or 3 million a year in revenue. So it's a healthy company. So I had kind of built a company before, but I had never built a startup. And so the whole world of, I learned how to make a deck, and I learned a lot of things from the Startup Accelerator, but a lot of the kind of intricacies of how to run a startup, I had to learn through my network. Okay. So I knew that I needed advice on strategy, on go-to-market. That was kind of a big topic that was just mentioned. On marketing, on distribution. I needed help in all these areas. And I needed to be able to connect with projects that were going to want to use Neoswap. Ultimately, Neoswap is going to be this kind of B2B economic engine. And so we need partners. And to start off with, we need community. So I needed to network with projects. Certainly, obviously, I needed to meet investors. Something I would say when it comes to networking and fundraising, it is way, way easier to raise money from off a warm intro than it is off of cold outreach. In fact, of all the money we've taken in, I don't think we've taken in a single dollar from cold outreach. I've sent one cold outreach email, didn't get a reply. That's it. That's all it is. Now we're going to be doing a little bit more of that for the seed round. to try to find the people who really love what we're doing. But generally speaking, if you have a nice deck and you have a nice blurb, and I'll talk about this, and somebody that knows you and appreciates you recommends you to somebody else that you want to meet, that person will probably meet with you. Okay. And then you're having a conversation. Now you're just in the door. It's much better than being, imagine, your VC, you got 100 decks coming across your deck or your desk, maybe at least a week, maybe even a day. You're going through 100 decks. Your deck has to really stand out if you're going to be in that big pile. On the other hand, if someone that they know and trust says, hey, you really need to talk to James or whoever, I see James on my screen, so just to pick on you, James, then they're going to meet with that person. Okay. And you just get to cut the line. That's way better. Okay. In fact, I would recommend that you have a deck that is customized for warm intros. You can have your full deck, has all sorts of information, but if you have a warm intro deck that is just enough information to show that what you're doing is interesting, that goes along with a warm intro, that's going to be a good situation. Okay. So related to that, you need to have some niche. For me, as Albert mentioned at the beginning, we're doing, I would say, what I believe that what we're doing is really, truly unique, that we have a unique combination of blockchain and AI. We've got market research AI. I've got a whole business that's already built around that can do individualized preference prediction. And then, of course, you have multi-way trade finding, which is its own field. We put those together. That's the art of our economic brain. And we're doing it all on blockchain. So if you're going to talk about like real AI on Web3, that's kind of our niche. And then we can niche it even further with the Bitcoin angle. So I've got my niche, and I even have, on social media, I try not to get too political, but, I do favor individual freedom. And so I don't hide that. I do think that most government activity is a net negative. So, I share those views. And then what happens is you end up with people that are attracted to you, where you kind of niched it down. And it's much better to have a small set of people that really like you than to have everybody on average kind of think you're okay, right? You're never going to, the fact is, to get money, you have to get over the line. There's some threshold. It's like 95% or whatever it is, or some threshold. You have to get over the line. You have to have some people who love what you're doing if you're going to get funded. Not good enough to have everybody think it's sort of okay. So you need to keep niching it down, and you need to find people who are like-minded. And for me, when people say, what are you looking for investors? The very first thing that I'm always looking for is ideological alignment. People who believe the world economy is broken and want to change it. They feel like it's unfair. People are shut out. It's unjust. It actually does a lot of evil. We want to change it. And we want to be a force for good by creating a new type of economy. When I find it like that, then great. Now we're on the same page. We're on the same team to begin with. Much easier to convince them to come on board because they support our mission. So have a mission, have a niche, and lean into it, and let that guide the sort of person that you're going to meet. Don't just meet generic VCs. Meet VCs that are on the same page as you. Okay. All right. So related to that, got to put yourself out there. Some of you, maybe if I can have a little show of hands, how many people already kind of knew me or followed me on Twitter, ever seen my stuff? Anybody on here? Okay. So I see some hands. That's good. Put yourself out there, public. Share your journey. You're on a hero's journey. You really have to see it that way, that you're on this journey and there's ups and downs. And and by the way, it's never as bad as you think, and it's never as good as you think. So don't overreact. You get some news, you think it's great. It's going to turn out not to be as great as you thought. You get some news, you think it's terrible. Okay, you might get depressed, but it probably won't be as bad as you thought. Okay, so don't overreact. If it goes down, don't think it's over. Just think, okay, I'm in Act 2 of this play, and I have to wait for Act 3 when things come back up. See yourself on a hero's journey and share that journey with people. How many times have you guys have probably seen this all the time? Even the Neoswap, me putting a poll on Twitter to ask what our name should be. We used to for trading made simple. Neoswap's a much better name. I got that name from Nick at Gamma because I just started a big conversation on Twitter. What should we call this company? And all sorts of people chimed in, and in the end, Nick came up with Neoswap, and now here we are, Neoswap. Okay, and that's even a cool story that I now share on Twitter. So just share your journey, share what you're going through. Try not to make it too negative. Don't say like thinking about ending it all. Don't post that. But like, be somebody that people find interesting, by sharing what you're doing is interesting. Very few people ever actually start a company, or they especially don't start a startup. You're like at the edge of society here doing something that's takes a lot of bravery. Share that with people. It's exciting to see people on those kind of journeys. All right. related to that, build your personal brand. Now, personally, for what we do, I find Twitter to be way more useful than LinkedIn. I do have AI generated posts that go up on LinkedIn every day, and I have my assistant send out connection requests on LinkedIn. And you do need to have a strong LinkedIn profile. VCs will look at your LinkedIn profile. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is in good shape when people look for it. I personally network on Twitter. I guess there's these new things coming like the threads on Facebook. I don't know if I want to sign up for that. I don't know. We kind of have our niche, but you need to find this is the type of distribution, right? These are distribution channels for yourself. Get your brand out there. As a CEO, really people are investing in you. So it's very important that you build a personal brand. Can I have some recommendations at the end about personal brand? On this point, tweet from the heart. Don't tweet that lame stuff like 99% of people are using ChatGPT wrong. Here's 17 ways to use it right. Like, don't tweet that stuff. Like, tweet from the heart. When you feel like you have something interesting to say it, put yourself out there and be authentic. Okay. Now, some things that I would say that you need to be able to present yourself well when you meet people. Okay. And along those lines, you want to be clear when you're speaking. And I did Toastmasters. That helped me a lot. How many people have heard of Toastmasters? Is that something you guys know about? Some people have heard of it? I would highly recommend you do Toastmasters. The way Toastmasters works is there's usually a group that gets together once a week. And each week, some people will give speeches. Everyone will get a chance to talk. The first part of the meeting, there's what are called table topics, where there'll be some topic everybody's supposed to talk about for 3 minutes off the top of your head. Okay. That's what's allowing me to give this talk. I haven't rehearsed this or anything. I'm just going through this slide talking off the top of my head. And it's because of Toastmasters. When you're in a call with an investor, you have to be able to speak confidently just off the top of your head. So sign up for Toastmasters, do the table topics. You'll do 10 speeches. At the end of it, you get this effective communicator award. You can put it on LinkedIn if you want. And what's more important is you'll have gotten a lot better at presenting yourself when you meet people. Something else I put on here, there's obviously respect for other people, but self-respect. This is very important. Do not be obsequious or don't denigrate yourself. Don't make self-effacing jokes. Try to cut out in the communications. Don't say things like, thanks for making the time to meet me. What does that do? Right off the bat, that means you're lower status than the other person. You say, I'm glad we could make time. You got to present yourself as an equal in these meetings because your goal is to connect and be ultimately friends with these people. You're not like their shoe cleaner. You need to just present yourself as an equal. I'm glad we can make time. Happy to meet you guys. Let's get started. That kind of thing. Lead the meeting. All right. So I think that's it. Now, one thing that you really should all watch out for is filler words in your speech. Okay. And you should practice with your team. Present to your team. Have them count the number of times you say or like or any of that stuff. You really got to cut it out. It's much better if you feel a filler word coming on, just say nothing. Just be quiet. And there'll be like a little bit of suspense. Obama is a master of that. He just be quiet and for a long time. And everyone's like, what's he going to say? Just be quiet instead of saying filler words. Okay. All right. Now we talked a little about networking platforms. I find Twitter to be like magical, basically. We've hired most of our team through Twitter. We were building in public. We were calling for people to be testers. We have 19 people at Neoswap now. Probably 12 of them came through Twitter of just us building and say, hey, we need a front-end engineer, get a bunch of messages, we end up hiring somebody. So Twitter is great. LinkedIn used to be pretty good. Now it's all spam. I don't know. If you guys find it useful, it's good. Some people use AngelList. Obviously, startup events, you can go. I think that personally, depends on how big your team is. I don't think it's great for a CEO to be at conferences all the time. I think that looks like you don't have anything to do. But if you can send a representative who's good at networking, our CSO, Kieran, is a great networker. He goes to conferences, he meets people, and he says, hey, you really need to talk to our CEO, and he sets up a meeting. All right, that's good, right? That's now high status because I'm busy doing things. I don't have time to go to the meeting. He meets somebody, sets up the meeting, then we have a meeting. So send your other team members to events if you can. Have them meet people, have them set up the call. That puts you in a higher status position. Conferences, same sort of thing. That's all another good avenue for meeting people. Now, here's some tips for in-person networking, something I've learned over the years. You have to warm yourself up. If you're going to be making conversation with people, you have to be kind of already on. One thing that I think is really underutilized is talk to everybody. Just talk to whoever you can talk to. If you're feeling nervous, talk to the wait staff. They can't leave. They're being paid to be there. So just talk to them and get warmed up. Hey, how's it going? So, how often do you guys do these conferences? Just ask questions. You're talking to the wait staff and you kind of get in a positive social frame of mind. You turn around, the next person you talk to, that might be the lead investor in your seed round. And because you were just having a nice conversation in a safe environment, you turned around, you're really open, you're going to have good energy in that moment. Okay. So be talking to people. And if you don't know what to do, just make sure you're standing up straight. You got good posture, you're nice and open, you're smiling, and talk to the wait staff, warm yourself up. Once you're kind of in a socially lubricated frame of mind, then go out. Now, don't drink. That's another bit of advice I would have, is that I gave up alcohol. I think that if you start drinking at events, you might do something dumb and you'll spend the rest of your life recovering from that. So I don't recommend drinking, honestly. I would say get club soda, cranberry. You want to smoke a cigar? I got a cigar here. Cigars don't make you do dumb things. Be careful with alcohol. You really can get honestly, you take your whole career down with one bad decision if you've been drinking. So just be very aware of that. We have actually anti-drinking culture at Neoswap because it just isn't, what is it accomplishing anyway? Like the next day, you don't feel very good. Like, stay away from alcohol. That's not going to help you. All right. Now, online, some things that you should always be in the habit of doing is whenever anybody mentions anybody interesting, you say, hey, that sounds great. I'd really like to meet them. Do you think you could give us an intro? You need to be in the habit of just reflexively asking for introductions. Everybody you know, and don't have it be, it can be good if you say, hey, do you know anybody on Solana or whatever? In this case, Bitcoin. You would say like, you could ask those kinds of targeted questions, but it's a lot better if there's a specific person and you ask for an intro to that person. To that extent, you need to have something that's shareable, because that person is going to say, hey, I met this interesting person. You should talk to them. They might come back and say, well, can you tell me more about them? So let me show you the kind of stuff we have at Neoswap. We have an about page. One of the reasons that we have an about page is it's a little bit different to have an about page instead of just the deck. The deck is gonna, like, we have this link, neoswap.cc/about. Okay. And it's in our data room. This is a Notion page, and it describes Neoswap. Here's the overview, vision, example. I've got here's my blurb for me, that and stuff about me. Here's the team, investors. Okay, down here, finally, there's the link. The deck is here. You want to avoid, if they just get a deck, then now you're in the big pile again, and you have to avoid that. You want to be unique. And that's why I like because you have a page, you can express yourself differently, like break the frame. Okay, have it be like, hey, there's somebody you should talk to, not like, hey, I got another deal for you. You don't want to be in that pile. Okay, and then they can get in here. So they can get the deck if they need to. There's a little ask me anything down here, little chat bot. Okay. Also, you want to have a scheduling link. And maybe there's a little bit of protocol that you guys should know here. When you get an intro, what'll usually happen is you get an email, maybe it'll be on Telegram. And by the way, everybody should be on Telegram. If you're not on Telegram, get on Telegram. You really need to be on Telegram for networking. Okay, so it's something else. Somebody send you an email, and John, Trevor, I think you guys should meet. And they might say you already have contacts. They might give some little blurbs, and they'll say it's over to you guys now. What you want to do is move, and maybe some of you know this, but I just want to tell you the protocol for everybody. Move the person who emailed you, your friend, to BCC. Okay, move the person that you're replying to up to the to field. All right, and then you want it to be very short message, and you need to. Your goal is to get a meeting. Okay, you don't want to go back and forth answering questions in an email. Okay, so suppose that Albert introduced me and Trevor. I'd say, hi, Albert, thanks for the intro. And then in parentheses, I would put to BCC. Okay, then that's Albert, touch that base. And I say, hi, Trevor, nice to meet you and happy to connect. All right, then I say, how does next week look for you? If you have a scheduling link, I'm happy to use it. Or if it's easier for you, here's mine. Look forward to talking, John. Look forward to connecting, John. So notice what I did there. I assumed we're going to meet. I didn't get into some back and forth, happy to talk to you about whatever. No, it's just right to the point. That's what you want. You want a meeting. Have it be, as soon as you say, nice to meet you and happy to connect, act like your assumption is they have already agreed to a meeting. And now you're just going through the mechanics, right? You're assuming the sale here. You guys understand? mechanics are very important. So just to remind everyone here, hi Albert, thanks for the intro to BCC. Trevor, nice to meet you and happy to connect. How does next week look? If you have a scheduling link, I'm happy to use it. Or if it's easier, here's mine. Look forward to connecting, John, or look forward to talking, whatever, or best wishes, whatever it is, whatever you feel like ending with. All right, now, here's another trick that you should know from influence. If you want to drive someone towards a choice, a good technique is give them the choice you don't want them to take first, give them the choice you do want to take second, and make the second one sound easier. All right. If you can do that, you can usually get a person to go to the second choice. Notice that I'm showing respect. If I just throw a scheduling link at them, they'll feel like I'm treating them like a servant and they won't like it. But if I say, if you have a scheduling link, I'm happy to use it. Or if it's easier, here's mine. Now you're just trying to smoothly guide them towards what the desired behavior, which is to use your link. Okay. All right. So have that all ready to go. Those are the mechanics of the meeting. You want to get to the meeting. Okay. Now, when the meeting starts, so I have got, when I go into the audience, so when I go into like meeting founders, whatever, or actually meeting. Okay, let me just talk a little bit about when the meeting starts. I want to talk about that protocol as well. Meeting's going to start. You want to be on camera. You want to make sure you have a nice setup. You should think about your background. In my case, I've got my whiteboard, I've got my plants, I've got my books, I've got my many degrees. It's all lined up. I've got an American flag back there. In case someone's freedom oriented, I want them to know I'm on their team. That like, hey, we're here for individual freedom. You have it all lined up. You want it to look impressive. Okay, and it'll be over the top, but like you do want it to be the case that they feel like they're meeting somebody. Okay. So that's one thing. You want to have a good camera. I've got a SLR camera here. I've got actually lights. I've got studio lights. Office. You want to be standing up because then you're going to talk better. Okay. Now, try to get the other person to introduce themselves first. That's almost always better. Okay, because you want to be like, hey, so-and-so, nice to meet you. They might say, well, tell me about Neoswap. So, yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I understand where you're coming from. Suppose I'm meeting Trevor. So Albert told me things about you. I did my own research, but I think it'd be good if I could hear from you first. And then they'll go ahead and they'll introduce themselves. Okay. You don't want to be in a kind of dance monkey dance situation where they show up, they're asking questions, and now you just have to respond to their questions. That's a really low status position to be in. Okay. You have to avoid that. It has to be a conversation among equals. Right. And part of how you make sure that that happens is get them to introduce themselves first, because that sets the frame. You're running the meeting. They're responding to you. They're granting your wish. Now you're going to do it when you're ready. You'll go ahead. And if you say, and it starts to go back and forth, and they say, look, my experience is once I start explaining what we're doing, it's going to take the rest of the call. So I'd like to get a chance to know you before we get into that. And say, okay, that's fine. But make sure the other, and also it's very important to know the other, you might, if you don't get them to introduce yourself, you might say a whole bunch of stuff that's miscalibrated. So you need to know about them first. Okay. Now, I have lately come to appreciate, now I always was sort of aware of this, but I've really come to appreciate it as I've gotten deep into fundraising, how important building relationships with other founders is. That you guys should all really be meeting each other. And once one of you gets an investment, all right, if you feel like one of your colleagues has a company that your investor would be interested in, you should very liberally share those deals with your investors. Okay. And reciprocate that for each other. Investors love deal flow. And if you send them a good deal, they'll be very grateful to you. So overshare, say, hey, we have an investor channel, like a Telegram group that's just for our investors and advisors. And I'll put deals in there. I'll say, hey, I've got this company I think is interesting. If you want an intro, let me know. Share deals with your investors on behalf of your fellow founders, and similarly reciprocate, right? So you guys should all be, as soon as you have an investor, now before you have an investor, it's not really a good time to do it. But once somebody's invested in your company, very natural to start sharing deals with that investor. Okay. And then you can help each other out. Right. Then you can all kind of go up together. So that's something that I think is really important. Also good to just talk to founders about how can you collaborate together? What are you both seeing in the market? What are your shared experiences? I think 99% of people have no idea how hard it is to be a founder. Probably less than 1% of people have any idea, but founders can appreciate it. So have some calls with each other. If you guys, are talking and you think somebody in this group's interesting, send them a message. Say, hey, I think what you're doing is cool. It'd be cool to have a call and just get to know each other. Have it be relaxed. And that also practices talking about what you're doing. Mentors. That's something that I benefited a lot from. We have a lot of advisors at Neoswap. And this is a situation where this is someone who could maybe be an investor, but mainly they're just like a coach. They're a guide. You're on a journey. You're like Dante going through hell. You're looking for Virgil to help you get through it, right? So that's what you want, some guide, some mentor. In my life, I've tremendously benefited from mentoring. Trevor Owens actually is one of my mentors, and he's taught me a lot. Now we're, I would say, friends. But at the beginning, he just mentor and then advisor, eventually became an investor, he's friend. You want to build those relationships, seek mentorship relationships. People who have really been through it are happy to share. And I mentor, for example, I mentor Robin, mentoring Dylan now from BitFlow. So it's usually the people who have been successful want to give back. It's the people who aren't successful that are like, they're the people like if you make it, you probably have that quality that you're open. So reach out, look for mentors. And then finally, investors. Here, this is where you do want to understand the sorts of deals an investor's looking for. You want to ask for, we're looking for people who appreciate Web3 and its value. We're not reaching out to native. We could probably raise from AI funds, but we're not even trying to, because I want someone who's convicted about Web3. I believe Web3 makes all sorts of new economic possibilities. It makes them approachable for the first time in human history. There's a lot of things about Web3 that are new, and only someone's convicted about Web3 is the sort of person I want on our cap table. I don't want somebody sending me messages saying we should pivot to supply chain. You need to really, like, part of how you make sure that you're happy with your cap table is you only meet people that you want on your cap table. And if a call isn't going well, don't be afraid to say, you don't have to push for follow-up with everybody. You can be picky. And I think that it actually becomes easier to get money if you have the vibe that, like, you're going to pick and choose who's on the cap table, that you're not just going to take whatever money you can get. All right. Now, something that's important when it comes to following up, immediately after you first off, if you're having a good call with somebody, you'll probably find that you're running out of time. Don't book hour-long calls, just book 30-minute calls. So there's a little bit of time pressure. You'll probably find, if it's a good call, that you're running out of time. Say, hey, this has been great. Why don't we catch up next week? It'd be great to talk again. And ideally, what you're going to do is get into regular cadence and meeting with somebody every few weeks. And after a while of that, they'll start to feel like they can trust you and that, they get to know you, they'll be friendly with you. So if a call's going well, book the follow-up call right then. People who've been I've been married now for 10 years, but back when I was dating, I always used to push for the next date on the current date. The best time to get the next date is the current date. Okay. Once you guys go apart and you're trying to message things, it gets so complicated. But if you're together, you can work out the next date. Okay. Same thing here. Call's going well, work out the next call on the call. As soon as the call is over, you should send at least a short note to say, hey, it was nice to meet you. You also need to thank whoever made the introduction. That's another important thing, because that will help encourage them to make more introductions. On the off chance that the call didn't go well, you could also let the person know, hey, thanks for the introduction, but I have to say we didn't really hit it off, just didn't see eye to eye. That's okay. That helps that person know what sort of person to introduce you to. Okay. So I would say send that follow-up immediately. Now, sometimes you don't get the next call booked and you have to follow up. A good thing to say when you have to follow up, say, hey, I enjoyed talking to you. Did you still want to get together? Okay. Don't ask, do you want to get together again? Say, did you still want to? Again, assuming the sale. Assume that they wanted to get together. Did you still want to get together? Okay. Now, I have a lot of funny stories on mistakes I've made, including twice I've hung up on VCs. I don't know if you guys want to hear those stories or not, but you do want to keep together. You don't want to burn any bridges. There's a limit to how far you can get pushed, but generally speaking, be nice. Don't lower your own status. Be very aware. Don't say things like hey, just following up. Don't do that. Say, hey, I hope you're well, following up. Strong as an equal. Okay. The biggest mistake I see founders make is they put themselves, like, VCs are already going to assume you have lower status. Don't amplify that by assuming it's true before the call even gets started. Okay. Be very aware of how you present yourself. Now, don't be a jerk. That's the mistake I've made sometimes. I've been a little bit over the top, but stand up for yourself. All right, some resources I put on here. A long time ago, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Had a big impact on me. Some other books in this area. I would say there's a book, Never Eat Alone, and The Startup of You, talking about personal branding. Obviously, Twitter, that's kind of my mainstay, but you've got other options here. And there are various podcasts. I mean, you can subscribe to any industry podcast you find are interesting. The All In Pod. I don't know. I don't listen to any podcasts. I don't have time. But that can be a way to stay in touch as well. What's going on? Okay. So I think now if we have some time, we can go through some questions. And I'm happy to share anything that I think you guys, is that useful or interesting? Material?
That was excellent. That was excellent.
Okay, thank you.
People should rewatch that actually. A lot of tactics, hard-earned tactics over the years that will save you guys a lot of time.
Yeah.
You guys practice it.
Okay, good.
You could probably
All right.
turn that into a networking handbook in the future.
Well, everyone should get Fundraising by Ryan Breslow. I didn't put that on that book, but that book is probably the most important book I've read. It's like 50 pages long. Fundraising by Ryan Breslow. Everybody should read that. In fact, Albert, you should mandate that. That should be mandatory reading. Yeah. Because it really is true. Fundraising comes through your network. It doesn't come through giant spreadsheets and this. It's yeah, there you go. And you know, you'll read it in an hour, or there's an audiobook, you can just listen to it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great book, guys. It'll be a mandatory assignment the second half of the program.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing I wanted to say. Be aware of how you present yourself professionally, I would say. Be very careful about using curse words on Twitter and stuff like that. You know, I know that can be edgy and all this, but that's not going to get a lot of money, really. Maybe it will in some cases, but generally speaking, one of the things an investor is looking for, can I trust you with a large amount of money? And if you seem like you're, you know, really out there in terms of like to the point of it being unstable, that's a negative signal. Okay. So I do think you can be authentic without cursing. I would recommend don't do that either. You know, it's not going to get you any extra money, and it could repel money. So think about how you're presenting yourself professionally. Okay. Yeah, you can be, you know, I mean, you can have opinions that are not in the mainstream, but just be aware. You want to present yourself like a mature person. Yeah. Okay, Cordy. You're on mute.
Oh yes, John, I really love your presentation. It was very insightful. How often do you use Telegram? Because I tend to use Telegram probably more than emails. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, Telegram is really better. That when you, thank you. Yeah, I would say if you can get your intros through Telegram and you can have your conversations through Telegram, it's really better. It's less formal, right? So I would prefer, generally speaking, Telegram. I try to get things to Telegram. Now, sometimes older VCs are not in Telegram for whatever reason, but you do run, or people that have been in the startup world for a long time, they oftentimes aren't into Telegram. They just have their kind of set in stone the way they're doing things. But yeah, once you meet, that's another thing when it comes to scheduling the follow-up. At the end of the call, in addition to getting a follow-up, you should make sure you connect on Telegram on the call, like that the message on Telegram is sent. Rambox. Oh, thank you. Everyone should get Rambox. If you use rambox.app, I think it is. I'll put it in here. Here, I think this is the Rambox is an app that will let you manage Slack and Discord and Telegram and WhatsApp all in one application. You can just toggle through and you can have it on your desktop. So then you can just have Telegram with like the convenience of email at your desktop. But yeah, get to Telegram and then set up a group chat between the person and your team. If they're an investor, you got a little echo here. Set up a group chat between your team and the investor. Now, oftentimes you can't add an investor to a group chat on Telegram because of their settings. So what you do is you create the group, make sure you turn the chat history on in the group. It's very important. So turn the chat history on because they might add people later. And then get the link to the group and share it in the private message to the investor. Say, hey, I made this group chat, please join. And then you can share material there. Okay. And at the very least, when the meeting's over, say thank you on Telegram. Okay. And it's much better. The speed is more important than the content. If you told them you're going to send them a bunch of stuff and you don't have time, much better to say, hey, it was nice to meet you. I'll send the stuff later. Then you don't say anything. And then they kind of forget about you. And then tomorrow, the next day, you're coming at them with material. You want to lock in that connection while it's warm. So thanks to meet you. I've got another call now, or nice to meet you. I got another call now, but I'll follow up with other stuff later. Like touch that base as soon as the call's over.
Thank you so much. That's very reassuring because I use Telegram a lot, and I was assuming that is that something wrong with using Telegram so often? But I just prefer.
No, it's good. Yeah, you want casual relationships. You want to message investors. Hey guys, it's got to be like that. Not dear Dr. So and so. Like it's not. You don't want that. It should be there. You should be treating them like they're equals. Yeah. Okay. All right, Rich.
Okay, so I raised from 2 different investors. Is it advisable to put them both in one group and send out investor updates, or should I do it solo?
Oh, So I send, okay, so I missed the first part of you. Could you ask it again? You kind of broke up and I missed like the very first part of what you said. Could you
So I've
ask
got a
it one?
group of investors.
Yeah.
Should I send out group updates and put them all in one group chat, or is there any kind of detriment into doing that?
Yeah. Okay. I think when you've got you have investors and advisors who have actually signed, that they're onboarded. Investors have sent the money, the advisors have signed the agreement. People who are now part of your team, there should be a group chat on Telegram and you can put stuff in there for everybody. Okay. Now, sometimes people will mute that channel because there's so many messages. So sometimes it's good for your key investors to have separate group chats. Now, for the investor updates, which may go to people who haven't invested yet, right? Prospective investors. The way I send those, I use GMass, okay? And I could show you. So GMass is a plugin for Gmail. And what it lets you do is you can set up Excel spreadsheets. We have, sorry, not Excel, Google Drive sheets, okay? And so you have a Google Sheets document where you've got different tabs for different groups of people. So we have one that's for Neoswappers, one that's for existing investors, and one that's for people who haven't invested yet. And by the way, train yourself to think about prospective investors as people who haven't invested yet. Okay. That at some point they'll see the light and they'll send you money. Okay, that's the way you have that like mindset. Okay. So we got those 3 sheets. And then in GMass, what you can do is, why don't I show you guys this? I might be at risk of years of being a consultant has taught me to be very careful about sharing my screen. So I'll just talk you through it. You draft your investor update for the week, and I send weekly investor updates. I don't know if anybody here has gotten those. You draft that, and it's like dear first in parenthesis, okay? And then you connect up the Google spreadsheet, and it will pull the email and first name and do the mail merge for you and send the emails from your email. Okay, so each investor will get an individual email from you. So you're not using MailChimp or any of that stuff. It's coming directly from your Gmail, and that'll help you get around some of the spam filters. So I would say individual email investor updates should go out by email. You can also put updates into your group chat for existing investors, and then you should just manage the other. We have looked into automations for Telegram to send the update through Telegram, but we haven't done that yet. I kind of feel like they have to earn the right to be in a Telegram group, that they have to it's more formal than they can get emails. And then once they're once they've achieved some extra level in my eyes, then they can come into a Telegram group. You have to have a little bit of that arrogant attitude that once they've earned it, then they can get something better, but until they have a connection with you, they're just going to get emails.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Okay, Rafa.
Hey, John. I really enjoyed your presentation. It reminds me of a book, Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And
that's another book I'd recommend. Yeah.
It's the practicality. You really took it to the next level. So just my question is around when someone during a meeting is maybe framing you into a lower status. Do you have a few practical examples of how to get out of that frame and come back to yours?
Well, there's a lot of ways that can happen. Okay, one is somebody's not paying attention. They're clearly checking their email or whatever. And this takes some courage to do, but I do this where somebody's clearly not paying attention. And so you just stop talking. And at some point they look up and you say, it looks like you're busy. Do you need a minute? Okay. And they'll be like, and it'll be really awkward. But that's what it is. I mean, you want to succeed at this or not, you got to suffer through uncomfortable moments to succeed. And so they might say, well, I'm just answering some emails. And I say, well, this is about time we can reschedule. And so at some point, I mean, you have to decide, because if someone's going to be openly disrespectful to you, is that really somebody that you want in your life? You got to be prepared to walk away. Because because that's the sort of person that's going to send you messages in the middle of the night telling you to change stuff and that kind of thing. There's investors that you don't want. Right? So you give someone a few chances. Now I'm going to sound really arrogant here. Give them a few chances to behave themselves. And if they can't learn to act respectfully, then okay. Then you said, okay, here's a horror story. I got introduced to this guy, and call started, he's like another thing, it's 5 minutes late, that's the end. Okay, someone's 5 minutes late, then it's time to hang up the call and say, hey, sorry we missed each other. Let's find a time to reconnect next week. Okay. That'll happen a lot. Don't hang around forever. Definitely don't get something. Yeah, yeah. A lot of it. So that's one thing. So don't allow yourself, don't let somebody show up 7 minutes late and you're still there. That looks like you don't have anything to do. Okay. So a guy shows up 4 minutes late, no video. That's another bad sign. If somebody doesn't turn their video on, say like, I'm not seeing your video. Are you gonna be able to turn on your video? Okay. Now they say, well, I'm in the car. That's already kind of a bad sign if they're in the car. And I would say, well, this is not a good time to meet. We can reschedule. And say, well, actually, this is if they give you like kind of a reason why, like, well, actually, it's really hard for me to find the time. But if they start to get rude to you at that point, you might want to say, you've got to make your own decision. Here, let me tell you the JP story. Okay. So the guy shows up 4 minutes late, camera's off, and he joins the call like this. He goes, it's JP. That's how he answered. He joined the call. He didn't say, hey, John, sorry, I'm late, any of this. And I was like, okay. He said, and then before I even said anything about the camera, he said, oh, and I'm driving, by the way. So I'm not gonna have any video. Like, he's just gonna try to set the terms. Okay. So then I was like, all right. I said, well, I don't think this is gonna be very good. Like, there's a visual component to what I have to show you. So I don't think this makes a lot of sense. Why don't we reschedule? And then he said, well, this is highly irregular. You should be able to pitch without, with just words. And I'm thinking, yeah, of course I can. I just don't want to. But so we're like in this moment, where I had to decide, should I hang up on the call or not? And I said, all right, fine, let's go and get started. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Now, this is something else you can do. Start to give commands. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Okay. You have to be judicious with this, but that's a way to start to get the status back. Another way is don't answer questions directly. Answer some other question that you feel like answering. That's something else you can do. Once it starts to go sideways, though, it might just be time to give up. So anyway, JP introduced himself. It was all about him. Oh, you understand the technology, all this stuff. I don't care. I understand the technology. I don't need him to understand it. That's good for LPs, but he was nothing about what he does for founders. Something, this is really bad. So then I started to introduce myself and I said, well, I'll get a PhD in math. And he says, oh, where from? Now, my PhD is in differential geometry from UC Santa Barbara, which is the #2 physics school in the United States. Like, I have a very strong degree. Okay. He said, where from? I said, UC Santa Barbara. He said, never heard of it. Get to the pitch. And I said, look, this isn't going to work out. We're done. He said, what do you mean we're done? And I said, there's no future in this relationship. Let's just stop. And he said, okay, well, all right. He said, well, good luck. And I said, good luck to you too. Guess what? I haven't regretted that at all. I mean, it was kind of, honestly, I'm glad it happened because now I have a funny story to tell you guys. Like, there's lots of investors. You don't have to put up with that. There's lots of investors. You do not have to put up with abuse. All of you internalize that. You don't have to put up with abuse. There's a lot of money out there. There's more money than there are good ideas. If you have a good idea, you'll get money. Don't accept abuse, especially early on, because that person's going to be in your life for years and years. So don't put up with abuse. Okay, you want somebody that you have a real connection with, because you'll find them. Just keep meeting people. You'll find somebody. Right? I have other horror stories. Another guy, after I told him that I have a 3 and a 7-year-old, I asked him if he had kids. And he said, no, why would I have kids? He said, there's like, what's wrong with you? Like, there's too many people on the planet already. And I just told him I have small children. And then he's like making a big judgmental deal about people having kids. And so I thought, well, if you think people are bad, you could go home tonight and make the problem a little bit better. But I didn't say that. You could reduce the population by 1 tonight if you want to. Didn't think that. I didn't say it. I thought it. And when he said that, I said, okay, we have nothing to talk about. There's no future in this. There's no point. Let's just stop. And so we stopped. So don't be afraid. I mean, I probably could have done it nicer, but don't be afraid to walk away from a bad relationship. The consequences of having a negative person in your life will vastly outweigh whatever small amount of money they're going to give you. Okay. All right. Who's next? Joshua.
Hey, yeah, thank you for your presentation, and it's great to talk again. My question was about mentorship. How do you, when it comes to trying to find a mentor, what kind of criteria do you use?
Yeah. Well, first off, you're looking for somebody you can relate to, whose lessons will map onto what you need to learn. And you should have some idea what your weaknesses are so you can find people. Like, we added 2 advisors this week to Neoswap. One of them is in sports collectibles, and we really need to move into that area. So there's like a real reason to because he knows that world, you know, he can bring us into that world. So that's a real need. Another one of the other advisor we added is more of a business strategy, go to market kind of guy, and distribution, and that's going to help us too. So you show somebody what you need early on. Probably, I think who have been the most influential mentors for me. The three people who come to mind: Alex Dunstan, who was a VC in the UK. He's now retired. He lives in Portugal. He's just kind of a general VC thought leader. And actually, I got introduced to him by another mentor of mine, Doug Scott, who I met because we were just having a LinkedIn conversation about whether or not Bitcoin was good for the, is Bitcoin green energy friendly or not? That was kind of the conversation. So I made some good points and we became friends, and he messaged me and said, hey, we should have a call, and said, all right. So I had a call with him. Just meet lots of people. And every now and then you'll hit it off with somebody. And don't be afraid to reach out. I'm a little afraid with all of you on this call to say, everybody, please message me, because I do only have limited time. But I am willing to talk to people. I like to help people. If you feel like my lessons are particularly relevant to you, please reach out and tell me why you think that they're relevant, and we'll find a time to meet. So I am willing to meet. It's just there's only one of me, and I can't meet with everybody for half an hour. There's just enough time. But you want to have some idea of why you wanted to meet the person, okay? And then start talking to them. If you hit it off, then I would say, be generous with your advisorships. We were giving 0.5% common stock when we started. Now we're at 0.25% because our valuation has gone up. But we have a lot of advisors, probably more than most people would recommend. But I'm the sort of person who really wants to have a lot of input. Like I'm kind of a connector type, and so when you have a big broad network, your life gets a lot easier. Does that help?
It does. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for I want to express this session is really nice and very practical. So I do have a practical question that, like, if I already know there is some weakness or something bad in my project, should I bring it up by myself when meeting an investor, or maybe I should just hold it up to myself and maybe I just skip the conversation or skip that point?
Well, I wouldn't try to get away with anything because it'll come out. And so you might as well take it on the chin. That's what I would say. That right now at Neoswap, we have about 500 weekly active users, maybe $10,000 a week in volume. And if somebody thinks of us as a marketplace, that sounds very small. Now we're on our way to being this economic engine, and we'll be inside lots of marketplaces, and we're building tons of tools, and we're a pre-seed company, but I would say that I don't necessarily bring that up, but I don't shy away from it either. And it is important for me that we get correctly categorized in investors' minds, because investors are thinking, okay, is it feature, platform, marketplace, or something else? And we want to make sure they know it's something else. In our case, it's an engine. And so I would figure out a way to bring up the thing that you're nervous about and talk about how you plan to address it, because you're not going to get away with it. Like, it's going to come out, whatever it is. So, and you might even ask their advice. That might be the best way to bring it up. You're talking to them, because that's another thing, guys. Ask for advice. Say, now I would say there's this one part of the project, and I would like to get your opinion on how we should address this. What thoughts do you have? Maybe they actually have a solution.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ask for advice. Yeah. Okay, we're almost out of time here, so let's go to Kirti.
Hey, John, thanks so much. Awesome points from your presentation. So I have a question about, when we have conversations with VCs, sometimes VCs tend to be boring and we want to engage them and connect with them. It's happened with me a couple of times when I want to, try to connect with the VCs, but they always want to be having serious talks only. They don't want to connect with the founders on a conversation on a Zoom call or something. What are some good tips that you may suggest that I can use when we talk to VCs and try to build a connection in the first conversation? Of course, when you have multiple meetings, then you kind of connect. But in the first conversation, how do you connect with a potential investor?
Well, I do think it's more important. Yes, there should be some friendly chit chat, but I do think you should get to it in that first call, and you need to impress them with what you're doing and present yourself as high status. We've got this unique offering. They should feel like, okay, that was cool. I wouldn't push for chummy connection. I mean, it's friendly, it's warm. How you doing? Okay. Usually investors, by the way, investors usually ask, where are you calling in from? Okay. You can answer that question, but you must immediately ask them the same question. Okay, because you can't be in a situation where now that you answer their questions and they don't have to answer yours. Say, oh, in Virginia, what about you? Say whatever, but you have to ping pong that back immediately. To just warn you guys about that one. Yeah, I wouldn't spend too much time trying to chum up to them. That will happen naturally if they're into what you're doing. It's more important that you establish that you have some reason for them to be interested in you. Okay, I think we got Brandon, and then that's probably going to be it because I've got another call.
Yeah, hey, thanks for speaking today. Very knowledgeable, and you're actually the only other person I've like looked at in the eyes that's using AI in this space. In these, I guess you'd say, we're as soon as that it's coming out, we're using it pace. I would say you could agree with. It's kind of that new. So I was just
we were doing AI in 2017 before we were doing Web3. We were at AI, and then we figured out Web3 made it work. Oh yeah. We were trying to do this with Facebook Marketplace in spot time.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Well, that just even that impels me even more to kind of hopefully at one point have a little talk with you, like for advice. So I mean, I believe I've made like a pretty significant breakthrough here. I'm trying to get some people testing it. Jay Lee's going to be one of the first ones looking at it, but it's pretty big if it's right. Now, how wrong is what are you using for the AI, or like what do you find? I'm using GTP4. I'm finding the self-built models struggle in certain areas, so I'm using Claude, GTP4, and a few other things and some tools.
Yeah, well, we should have a different conversation about that. I don't think that's really. I mean, we're not using large language models anyway, so we can have a separate conversation about that. Yeah. We have personalized purpose prediction, but okay. Let me just diagnose this conversation for everybody so you can understand some things that happen. Okay, so Brandon tried to establish himself as equal status. Oh, you're the only person that I've met doing AI. All right, notice what I did. Broke the frame immediately. Hang on a second. We were doing this in 2017. Okay, then what did I do? Go ahead. Instruction. And so that's another thing to do. So you got to think, you have to be thinking in real time about this status game that's happening all the time. Even if you don't understand, even if the other person doesn't know they're playing it, they are. Okay.
Oh.
And so to like everybody learn, and then you start bringing up a technical point. This is another thing that can derail a conversation. Someone starts to bring up a technical point. That's never going to close the deal. All right. Eventually there's gonna be technical due diligence, but in the beginning, it's emotional. It has to be based on someone's impressed. And if they start arguing about models, that's not going to get you anywhere. It has to be, that's very interesting. Why don't we have a conversation offline? And if you need to, you can send me some technical questions. Okay. You got to break I'm sorry, Brandon, I'm not picking on you. I'm just
okay. Yeah, it wasn't actually going that direction, but it was more like your advice. That was it.
No, I understand. But on a separate note, we should have the topic offline because it's not like the most interesting topic in the world for everybody. But that's another point though, the analyst frame. Okay, there's like different frames. The analyst frame. In fact, Bowtie Sales Guy has a whole book I would recommend everybody gets on this, talks about the different types of frame. Analyst frame is death for sales because somebody will come in and they'll try, there's never any end to the questions. Just go on forever. Okay, you have to break the analyst frame. Where yes, of course, it's not the absolute best way you can do the technology, but it's good enough. And here's the other reasons why we're going to succeed. Okay, so is that helpful?
Yeah, no, that was really good. I guess kind of the
okay, but seriously, you should follow up. Yeah,
we'll be there.
Yeah. We'll talk. Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Anything else? So please follow up. I'm on Twitter, John Ennis BTC with underscores in between the words. I wish you all success. Feel aligned with you guys because I've been through this same journey, and yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like a lot of advice here. Can I say, at risk of getting myself into trouble, because I do notice this. Brandon, are you on mute? Is everybody on mute here? Okay, I'm going to say this because I see this with my other company. The top 4 positions are all women, 4 women PhDs. I know there's women on this call. Women, some of these things are you're going to have to not people please. That I think this is one of the things that is that can be a challenge where I think men, because we're not as nice, we don't watch out for people pleasing. Okay, it'll really get you into trouble. And honestly, I'd happy to coach any of you on this because I've coached my other, the 4 consultants in my other company. My wife's a professor. She gets into trouble with this. And I think for whatever reason, in this world, the VC world is a very male world. And you'll get taken advantage of. And I don't want to see that happen to anybody in this group. So please follow up with me. And I have a lot of tips. And I've seen it, with my other company, women doing B2B sales, they don't get treated the same way as men do. And it's not right. It's not fair, but it's the way it is. And so you have to learn to break that frame. These frame breaking tools are especially important for you because male VCs, especially older ones, will not treat you as well as they treat men. And it sucks, but it's the way it is. And so, to succeed, you have to understand that and be ready to fight it without becoming bitter, right? Because that, of course, has got its own set of problems. And so I'm happy to coach any of you on those techniques because I see it all the time with my other company, and it isn't fair. It's not right. It shouldn't be that way, but it's the way it is. So, it sucks, but better to know it and to understand when you're being manipulated and to not let it happen. So,
Well, that is
If
a
it's
huge offer. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
John.
so reach out. I mean, all of you should reach out, but I just have a special sympathy for that because I see it with my other company and I see it with my wife, the people pleasing thing. We all have to watch it. Don't be a people pleaser because it doesn't get you anywhere. At the end, if you don't respect yourself and you think I probably should do this, but we're trying to get the money or whatever, you'll regret it. So that's a general message, not just that's for everybody. Don't sell yourself short because you'll regret it. You'll always regret it in the end. You can get money from somebody else.